That is right. The Fantasy Overtime, the most accurate fantasy show that starts at 10:30 a.m. in the world. We are here. Justin Graver, Zach Lyons. We are going to let some people filter in. 3 dots down below. Share. There's also the little retweet thing. Share it as well. We need the shares. We want some fantasy questions. As we start the show, Julio Jones is inactive. He is not playing today. Fire up Russell Gage. Fire up, of course, Calvin Ridley, but put in Russell Gage. Let's go. It's time. This is the Fantasy Overtime, speaking of time. Part of the Broadway Sports Network. I should probably put up some graphics that tells you who we are. We are going to be taking your fantasy questions. We put them up on the screen. All of them. Make sure you tell us if it's PPR, half-point PPR, any kind of special scoring we need to know so we can give you the best and most accurate advice out there. We have been killing it on the Fantasy Overtime advice. We are I counted it. We are 97.8% accurate on everything that we say. Did I count it? I don't know. You just have to believe me because we are that accurate. So, Justin, tell us today what you're most concerned about at the moment.
Ooh, most concerned about? Gotta be Joe Mixon. Just because he had such a fantastic week a week ago, and now he's going up against a tough Ravens defense. I feel like a lot of people are going to be like, yes, Joe Mixon's back. And today might not be the day that he's fully still back because that's not a good matchup. It's probably not a great game script. Now, if Lamar Jackson is hurt, I guess he's going to play. But honestly, I don't know. I'm a little bit concerned about Joe Mixon for sure.
I'm a little concerned about this San Francisco-Miami game. You got 2, and here's why. I'm a Raheem Mostert fan. I've been on the Mostert block. I own him in a couple of leagues. I invested a lot in him as far as, I kept him in a couple leagues, et cetera, et cetera. Is he 100%? Is Kyle Shanahan going to get a little crazy in split time? I don't know, but I need him because the Patriots aren't playing. And then you have, is Jimmy G, what's his health like? Then on the other side of the ball, will Miami continue their role on offense of making opposing defenses not be startable? So let's see. Let's see what happens. I'm a little concerned about the game. We need some fantasy questions. We have tons of people in. I have a fantasy question for you, Justin. I have Hollywood Brown and I have John Brown, half-point PPR. Who do I start?
I think you got to go Hollywood Brown, and it's not just because we don't know the status of the Titans game. If I had to put money on it right now, I would guess the Titans play on Tuesday against the Bills. So that's another concern, though. If you have Derrick Henry, if you have any Bills players like you have John Brown, I would probably go Hollywood Brown. Again, the Bengals defense is not very good. We saw them get in a shootout with Jacksonville. I've seen them get in a shootout with Cleveland earlier this year. There's no reason to think they might not get in a shootout today with the Baltimore Ravens, which would actually require Hollywood Brown to be used more. And he was on the same page with Lamar Jackson. They made a really nice play in the scramble drill last week, so we're seeing them really start to connect. I'm pretty in on Hollywood Brown.
I got Huxley behind me. If you see the door shaking, he is trying to get out of the room. He's locked in, though, because we're locked in, and we are looking for some fantasy questions. We have not had any fantasy question, despite having a high number of people watching. This is the Fantasy Overtime. We rely on your fantasy questions. So look at this. Now taking fantasy football questions just popped up on the screen like magic. We're magic here.
I got a nugget for you.
Okay, I like the nugget.
I'm in on Ian Thomas. Now, Ian Thomas has not had a super productive season. He did catch a touchdown last week, but I wanted to be in on their other tight end, whose name I can't even remember, just out of pure like sleeperness. But I looked at their route percentages, and he's just not running enough routes to be considered startable. But Ian Thomas is running a lot of routes, and they're playing against the Falcons today. Gave up 2 touchdowns to Jimmy Graham, gave up 3 touchdowns to Robert Tonyan. It's almost purely matchup based here, but I think if you're looking for a deep sleeper at tight end this week, Ian Thomas is your guy.
Yeah, I almost used Ian Thomas in the tight end start position this week for our sit start show, and I was pretty close to doing that. On top of that, let's talk about this Colts-Cleveland matchup. Cleveland is coming off a hot performance versus Dallas Cowboys, and that offense seems to have clicked and is getting better week after week. Going up against a Colts defense, which everybody's really high on. They're the number 1 fantasy defense right now, but they also have faced really nobody, like nobody of note, and the game script has allowed them to lock down. So we were talking before we got on the show that I picked up Nyheim Hines for free in one of my leagues, and you asked if that was good. I said, well, eventually the fantasy luck or the Colts luck will break, right, in my opinion. So eventually game script will come out in his favor. What do you like and what do you not like about this matchup? And then we'll get to some questions because they're rolling in.
Well, I'm going to point to something that Warren Sharp tweeted about an hour ago about the Colts defense having faced a lot of 11 personnel, even going back to 2 years now. They've struggled against 12 personnel. And Cleveland uses 12 personnel almost more than any team. Just looking at their defense yards allowed, they're allowing over 2 more yards allowed per play against 12 personnel. The EPA per play is a 0.6 of a point swing. 41% success against 11 personnel. Only the offenses are having 41% success against 11 personnel. But 55% success against 12 personnel. Sorry, they have 31% pressure rate and 10.3% sack rate against 11 personnel. 0% sack rate against 12 personnel. The Browns don't really even want to throw the ball. Indy's pass defense is great, but the Browns are going to want to win running the ball. I think that the Browns will win running the ball today, and I'm all in on Kareem Hunt, and I'm kind of in on some of the Colts pass catchers who haven't had weeks in a while because they've just been able to dominate, like you said.
What do you think about D'Ernest Johnson? Is he startable in the flex?
I think he is flexible. I mean, he's obviously not as talented as Kareem Hunt, but like I said, the Browns want to run, and Kareem Hunt, who's going to take on the lion's share of the carries and will definitely be involved in the passing game, is a must-start RB1. But yeah, he is a flex. Henderson is a flex because the Browns are going to run the ball, and Kareem Hunt's not going to take every snap back there, so he is a good bet to catch a few passes there.
And it's also looking like this Browns offense is almost like it doesn't matter who's in the backfield. There's going to be 2 running backs that are worth the start. Now, let's see what D'Ernest Johnson actually is this week. But it's kind of reminds me of those Broncos offenses back in the early 2000s with Kubiak and Shanahan. Well, Mike Shanahan, where like Reuben Drones and all those guys at like one point, Peyton Hillis, they're all like 1,000-yard rushers whenever they touch the ball, and they look amazing. So this is kind of what it's starting to feel like down in Cleveland. So let's get some fantasy questions. First up on Periscope, we have Mark Andrews, Henry Ruggs, Hayden Hurst need 2 of 3 for the flex.
I would start Andrews and Ruggs. I mean, Hayden Hurst is, I don't know. I'm not trusting Hayden Hurst yet still.
Yeah, with no Julio, I'm kind of tempted to take the run of Hurst and Andrews, but I think that you have to go safe play is Andrews and Ruggs in my opinion. Okay, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Ruggs is a bit of a ceiling shot because we're not sure how well he's going to do, but you would expect the Chiefs to put up some points and force the Raiders to throw the ball, and their passing game has struggled without Ruggs, so like last week at least, the last couple of weeks.
Yeah. Okay, so we got Griffin, 1 running back spot left in a non-PPR. Who should get it? Jerick McKinnon, Le'Veon Bell, or Joe Mixon? You have to go with Joe Mixon, in my opinion. If it was PPR, I'd be tempted to say McKinnon, but it's not PPR. So I'm going Mixon. I'd go Mixon, McKinnon, then Bell in that order.
Yeah, I'm definitely not starting Le'Veon Bell until you see something good. That doesn't mean he could very well have a good day today, but I'm not going to trust that that's happening until you see it. McKinnon with Raheem Mostert back is just tough. So even though the matchup's not great, like Mixon could still break off a long run. Mixon could still get in the end zone. So you got to trust the workload in that instance and just go with Joe Mixon.
How do you feel about a shin injury on a running back? Like, because they get tackled around their shins all the time. I don't know what kind of shin injury it actually is, but does that cause for concern with Joe Mixon?
No, we saw this little injury thing pop up last Saturday, and then he went out and had his best game of the season. So I think as long as he plays, you can feel comfortable starting him.
Okay, next up from Jonathan Boren, how should owners approach the COVID games, especially players in Tuesday slot that could get moved? So you have to put your Titans-Bills players in the flex, like those flex positions, because if they're not playing, they could be moved. We're supposed to have some fantasy news, or I guess really real life news. We should be having news on when the game's getting played in just an hour or so away. So here's my suggestion: if you have Josh Allen, Ryan Tannehill, you need to pick up a quarterback, because that's in the afternoon or Monday games or primetime games. You obviously
Justin
can't
Herbert,
pick one
maybe.
up. Yeah, it's going to be hard to pick up one that's for the noon games, especially if they don't make the announcement when it's noon. Then you wasted a roster spot and you can't drop the quarterback. So go target those kinds of quarterbacks. As far as tight ends and stuff like that, that's stuff you can, like I said, put in the flex and just, hold your breath.
And hopefully we find out before the games kick off at noon. But if we don't, yeah, like Zach said, I have Derrick Henry in a league, and I was planning on starting Derrick Henry at running back with Kareem Hunt and putting Deontay Johnson in my flex. But I've now decided to put Kenyon Drake in my starting lineup, which I'm terrified about. Move Derrick Henry to my flex, and if the Titans game is on, I'll leave Derrick Henry in. If the Titans game is off, I'll put Justin Jefferson in the flex, who plays Sunday night. So I'm lucky my roster has options, but definitely try to consider picking up guys. If Justin Herbert's available in your league, maybe he's not. I mean, if you play a really competitive league, he might not be, but if he's still out there, they play Monday night, so that could be an option at quarterback. Otherwise, I think you just have to hope that we get some news before noon. Like, this could all change before noon, And if you wake up on Monday morning and the game's canceled, then what do you do, So it's pretty crazy.
We got a 0.5 PPR question. Derrick Henry with COVID risk on Tuesday, or Alexander Madison, Malcolm Brown, or Golden Tate?
Oof.
I'm going Malcolm Brown. Something about Malcolm Brown this week just speaks to me.
How likely are these guys to score considerably more than 0 points?
Probably Brown has got to be the most, right? Like,
what's his ceiling? 8? 12 maybe?
Yeah, 12 maybe at the max. It's 0.5 PPR, and we know he catches out of the backfield, so that could help, but probably 12. But I mean,
feel like you're almost better off taking the chance on Derrick Henry. Just because, like, Derrick Henry could get you 20. The Bills have been not very great against the run this year. The Titans are going to hand it off to him 30 times. Malcolm Brown is probably the safest play if you need points, but if you're like shooting for the moon, you're playing against the best team in your league or something, and you just want to swing for 150 this week, I would go with Henry. Yeah,
because I just checked. Malcolm Brown is a noon game, so you're locked in. That's not, just keep an eye on the schedule, because if Derrick Henry, I know there's still risk with keeping Derrick Henry in there, because what if they get a positive test again tomorrow, or if they get a positive test on Monday or even Tuesday? I know that. That's just kind of why I lean in this situation. I know it's a flex position. The fact that you're rostering Golden Tate, I would just kind of drop Golden Tate and just let, and have that flexibility. If you wanted to start Derrick Henry, have the flexibility to pick someone better up. Because, obviously, don't keep Golden Tate. There's just no reason for it.
Although he could have a good day today against the freaking Cowboys. Maybe that's what you're thinking. That could happen.
That could happen. Maybe. Oh, Nyheim Hines is also an option for Super Horn here.
Yeah, I don't know. I think that's going to be a slower, low-scoring game overall, so I don't know how I feel about recommending now like 4 fantasy players from that game, but maybe.
Yeah. Now, that's tough. I would probably roll with Derrick Henry for now. It's seems pretty much that the league is wanting this game to be played hell or high water. So
yeah, that coach presumably would not have been in close contact with anyone who's going to be playing in the game, I think. I mean,
and some
who
people
knows, but
are linking it that it may be a new outbreak or it may be a new thing, but it still can be the last little bit remnants of the original thing because it is within 12 days. So either way, I think this game's going to get played unless a huge player with they've been out of the facility, so they're like the contact tracing should be almost zero, like to their
Yeah.
families or whatever. So
and
we'll
know
see.
they must have been super careful following every protocol when they were in the building for however long they even made it in on Saturday. So
Yeah, I don't even think most people they reopen, but like very few people actually went in.
right.
This is not fantasy related, but just reminding everyone that Jerome Boger is horrible, and I think that is a good statement that deserves some airtime.
I agree.
So, other than that, no fantasy questions. It must be, I kind of felt this way this week. Is that like pretty much almost your roster and your decisions should be pretty easy this week. It seems like easy matchups across the board, nothing really too difficult. So I'm not too surprised.
Who are you DFSing?
Ooh, I am DFSing. I can pull it up just real
Me too.
quick.
I have 2 lineups I feel confident about.
Yeah, I have 2 lineups as well. So let's do this. DFS in lineup number 1, because there could be some spies in here from one of mine. But lineup 1, I have Jimmy Garoppolo, James Robinson, Kenyon Drake, Calvin Ridley, Deontay Johnson, T.Y. Hilton, Mo Alley Cox, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, and the Dallas Cowboys.
Ooh, Dallas Cowboys.
I'm riding the Dallas Cowboys train hard this week on defense. I was right about the Jets last week in certain aspects, so I'm going to ride with the guts on the Cowboys this week. The other one is pretty much the same, except for I have Marquise Brown, Terry McLaurin in there over T.Y. Hilton and I forgot who the other one was. Calvin Ridley.
Nice. All right, I got Teddy Bridgewater at my quarterback spot going against Atlanta with Mike Davis in at running back. I honestly think the Bridgewater to Davis passing game is going to be working today. Just like you, I have James Robinson and Calvin Ridley and Terry McLaurin. CeeDee Lamb is my last receiver. George Kittle at tight end. Kareem Hunt in the flex. And I am rolling with the Niners defense.
Oh, that's going to be a bad move, I'm telling you.
We'll see. And then I have a very similar lineup that has Tyreek Hill, Deontay Johnson, Darius Slayton, and Amari Cooper, along with the Steelers defense instead of those other receivers I named, but same running backs.
I think it'll be interesting lineups across the board in DFS. I didn't really see like one powerful stack that I feel like would be used across everywhere. I think the Panthers are the most likely, but I
think the Texans Jaguars game is going to be played big. I think I do have a third lineup with Deshaun Watson and James Robinson. I think James Robinson's going to be in everybody's lineup this week after how he's looked. And then we had comments from Jay Gruden that they want to get him more involved in the second half. And the fact that Dalvin Cook just ran all over this Houston Texans team.
Well, the Texans are historically the worst run defense through the first 5 weeks of the season. And this is coming off game, and that's even without. I think if you took the last game away from the Dalvin Cook game, they were still the worst. Apparently, like historically on a per carry basis or something. It was some crazy stat that I saw and then I didn't get to save.
And the Jaguars are the number 32 team in the league, last ranked team, DVOA passing defense. So Deshaun to Will Fuller is a stack in that third lineup I have.
Well, look at this. We got some more questions flowing through. So, Teddy Bridgewater or Gardner Minshew?
I mean, if you've been listening to the Flex and following me at all, this is easy for me. I picked up Bridgewater in 3 leagues. I'm playing him in 2 DFS lineups. The Falcons' defense is horrible, and the Panthers are better than we thought. So I still think there's value on the Panthers here. I'm going to bet on the Panthers. I'm all in on Panthers. If the Panthers lose today, I'm going to be feeling very foolish. Let me just say that.
Yeah, if they lose, it's gonna be a tough one to swallow. I'm with you. I like Teddy Bridgewater. I think that when you're looking at, a team like the Atlanta Falcons, they're giving up almost 32 points a game to quarterbacks right now. And I know that Teddy Bridgewater isn't a sexy quarterback or anything. I mean, he's not like, a gunslinger and all that kind of stuff, but you have to trust what you've seen. And we're talking about consistency. Atlanta Falcons consistently over the first 5 weeks or the first 4 weeks have given up the second most fantasy quarterback or points to fantasy quarterbacks. But not only that, they're the second most consistent to give up large amounts of fantasy points to quarterbacks. So they consistently just are, like Justin said, they're consistently, if your quarterback plays the Atlanta Falcons, you have to start him. And I think, to me, you have to start Teddy Bridgewater. Who knows what this Houston Texans team is going to look like, but they still do have players like J.J. Watt, and they have some really good linebackers there and all that kind of stuff. And traditionally, right now, throughout the week, they're actually giving up the sixth most fantasy consistent quarterbacks. But listen to this. They're only allowing 18 points on average. So that's a huge drop. That's like 13, 16 points in difference between the number 2 and the number 6 between Falcons and Texans. So you got to roll with Teddy Bridgewater. It's just, to me, a no-brainer. Here we go. In the super flex spot, if Titans and Bills don't play, which you have to make a decision on this in shortly, Antonio Gibson or Joshua Kelly. First off, what a deep roster you must have that those guys aren't even automatically starters, that they're only consistent for the Superflex. So kudos to you for having a strong roster, Sam.
Agreed. Well, who do you think in this situation? My answer is pretty obvious.
I think you got to go Antonio Gibson right now. I think you have to, and I think there's been a little bit of little talk and chatter around in LA about Justin Jackson, and I think that's going to be a little bit more of a timeshare. And I think that with Kyle Allen back there, with Kyle Allen, with Norv Turner, Scott Turner, and his familiarity with the offense, apparently Dwayne Haskins ain't even showing up in the building today.
Unreal.
Yeah.
But what's crazy is, so the Rams kind of have no idea what to expect from this Washington team. Maybe they can look at last year's Panthers and kind of get an idea, but the Rams are also 28th in DVOA against the run, defense against the run. I mean, Gibson and McLaurin, I was like, after week 1 and week 2, I was like, everyone was really high on both those guys all offseason, right? But after the first few games, it was like, man, are these guys going to be able to be played every week? Are they going to be matchup plays? And a quarter of the way into the season, I'm confident that they are just must starts now, Gibson and Kelly. And with Kyle Allen, I think the offense is going to be even better.
In PPR leagues, they're allowing 24.3 points to fantasy running backs in PPR. And Antonio Gibson is a PPR guy. And we'll have to go back to this question here in just a second. But I think you have to roll with Gibson. I think that they are starting to, as you've seen over the course of a few weeks, you've seen them give him more snaps, more touches, and that's what you're going to see. He was described by either one of the Turners or Ron Rivera as a bigger Christian McCaffrey. I mean, they said that he's bigger than Christian McCaffrey, which Christian McCaffrey's thick, like with 3 C's on the end. So, like, he's thick. So Antonio Gibson, they're high on him. I've been high on Antonio Gibson. I think this is going to be a good week to play him too, because I think he's going to be involved. And like you said, Kyle Allen loves dumping off to Christian McCaffrey last year. I don't see any reason why that can't continue this week. I think it's going to be a pretty sneaky play. In fact, I'm slowly talking to myself into a Kyle Allen, Terry McLaurin stack for DFS.
Actually, we should do that. GPP play that and try to win $1 million, because who else is going to have that stack?
So let's go with Gibson. And kudos to Sam, though, going back to what he said. He has Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, and Chris Carson as his starting running back. So that's why those 2 guys are in the super flex. Good roster right there. Yeah. Okay. Going back to our Teddy Bridgewater Minshew question, or is a follow-up question. Should I drop Minshew or Breeze to grab Bridgewater? Been very disappointed with Breeze this season.
I don't know. Breeze, yeah, probably, right? Can Breeze throw the ball downfield? I mean, he threw the ball downfield last week against the Lions.
I think I'm
but,
dropping Minshew because Michael Thomas is going to come back.
Yeah, but
That
Minshew's
changes
been
everything for Breeze.
productive, at least, as a quarterback.
Yeah.
I probably would drop Minshew for Bridgewater. Although
Yeah.
there's a chance, and not a low chance, that Minshew finishes the year as a higher-rated quarterback, at least in total points.
Yeah, he'll probably finish the year better than Breeze, but I don't think you have any worries for someone picking up Minshew at this stage of the game unless he goes off today for whatever reason. I think you could still pick Minshew back up and drop Bridgewater next week. This would be a good streaming opportunity for you.
Yeah, I'm with that.
We got a question. Mixon or Gibson? Matchup seems better for Gibson.
That's tough. That's like you're trying to galaxy brain yourself into having the ultimate lineup, but probably Gibson. Is that crazy?
I don't think it's that crazy with the Ravens defense versus the Rams defense.
I do think Mixon could have a good game. Like, I don't think it's out of the question that Mixon continues to look good. So you're like the guy that you spent a late first, early second round pick on, who finally broke out, who you're like excited to be able to use, versus Gibson, who's pretty good, like mid round sleeper guy. It's tough psychologically.
The Ravens consistently give up week to week, the second least amount of points to fantasy running backs, while the Rams give up the 13th most consistent points to fantasy running backs in PPR. So, to me, the match, if you're looking strictly at matchup and you were looking at running back 1 versus the Ravens and running back 2 versus the Rams, you'd go running back 2.
Yeah,
I know the Joe Mixon. That's maybe how you need to look at it. Instead of like Joe Mixon versus Antonio Gibson, you need to look at RB1 and RB2 or RBA and RBB versus their matchups.
Yeah, and like in DFS, there's no question it's Gibson over Mixon, but on your season-long lineup, it's tough. But yeah, I would recommend Gibson, and if you have to like take the L because of that, I think you can live with it because it's like the smarter play, right?
Oh, it's smarter play. Let's go to trade court. I wish I had a gavel. I'm trying to risk it with this trade. Should I do it? McKinnon and Devontae Parker for Kenyon Drake. I would say no.
I would say no.
Yeah, I would say you need to keep McKinnon and Parker. Parker is just he had his first 100-yard game last week. He's getting the opportunity you look for in a number 1 wide receiver, and he does do a good job with it. I mean, he's a consistently high-performing fantasy player week to week, someone that you can rely on. He has a low floor. His ceiling so far, he has a high ceiling, but he's not reaching it consistently. But you have to understand that he's going to get the opportunities. Now, you may not know what happens when Tua gets in there, but...
Yeah, I think Tua makes him better.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you have to keep Devontae Parker. I think if there was another running back you could use or another wide receiver you could use in the trade to get Drake last minute, you could. But Drake's outlook is murky. It's murky.
I even think McKinnon might have a better season-long outlook just because Raheem Mostert maybe could re-injure himself or whatever. Like, we've seen that if an injury happens in San Francisco, McKinnon has the primary role. Whereas Drake, I mean, Chase Edmonds is getting touches when they're down. Like, I don't know, man. I'm worried about Drake's season-long outlook. I still have him in a couple leagues, and like, if I have to start him against the Jets, I will, but that's tough. I wouldn't trade for Drake, though, unless you can do it for really cheap, and this isn't really cheap.
Yeah, I would not do this trade. Okay, last question. Justin Jefferson or Deontay Johnson, or take a risk with Diggs not playing?
Wow, I actually have this exact dilemma. Not with Diggs, but, Henry instead of Diggs. So I almost have this exact dilemma.
I would roll Justin Jefferson, right? He's hot. You ride the hot hand.
I would put Diggs in the spot right now, and if we don't have any word by the time Jefferson's game kicks off tonight, then you can put Jefferson in, and you give up the chance that Deontay Johnson has a big game against the Eagles, which he probably will, but like, you have a great lineup, so you would hope that Diggs or Jefferson would also be able to do that. So I would probably put Diggs in, and if we get word the game's canceled, you swap Jefferson in. But if we don't get word the game's canceled, then you got Diggs, and you're good against a bad Titans pass defense.
I feel like there's no wide receiver right now that's hotter than Justin Jefferson, and he's going up against Seattle Seahawks tonight. Like, to me, regardless if Diggs had COVID or not, I think I'd be rolling Justin Jefferson anyway, very comfortably, and be okay with it. So I personally would just roll with Justin Jefferson, just not even worry about if Diggs is playing or not, because you don't need Diggs at this point.
That's fair.
Because at this point, what if Adoree surprisingly comes off of IR? That changes everything. What if there's a lot of what ifs like surrounding Diggs? Because I mean, Diggs is good. Don't get me wrong, but he's not the apple of Josh Allen's eye like Justin
He
Jefferson
is.
and Kirk Cousins is.
Well, he is though.
John Brown
Isn't
is
he, like,
the guy.
leading the. How many? Hang on, I gotta look this up, but I'm pretty sure Stephon Diggs is like leading the NFL in targets.
Is he really?
Hang on. How do I find this quickly? Targets 2020 NFL. That's not the right thing. Hang on. Most targeted players. Thank you, Fantasy Pros. Okay, well, Allen Robinson played already, so he's leading the league. But who are we talking about?
Stephon Diggs.
Stephon Diggs is 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th in the NFL in targets. 9, 13, 6, 7. John Brown is. I'm scrolling. There he is. I have to count, but he's like got to be.
He also missed a game.
10, 6, 2, 5 for John Brown. I don't know if he missed the game. Maybe must have left early in the game.
He left early in this game with two.
Rams. Yeah. Oh, game 2. Okay. Well, yes, but Stephon Diggs is definitely the apple of Josh Allen's eye.
Yeah. We'll see. I don't think the connection is that great. I mean, he's had 2 good games and then like one pedestrian game in PPR and then one really bad games with 49 yards and touchdown. I don't know. I don't know.
Isn't a really bad game.
Yeah, it's not a bad game, but
he's
I just rolled
right now in standard scoring, and in PPR, he's number 5 receiver overall right now.
Yeah.
Diggs.
Roll with Justin Jefferson versus the Seahawks, though. There's no better matchup than the Seahawks, or very few matchups better than the Seahawks for a team like the Minnesota Vikings.
Yeah.
That is it. We are out of time on Fantasy Overtime. I'm Zach Lyons. This is Justin Graver. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for getting us those questions and sharing the show. We appreciate
Thanks
it.
for the nice comments. I saw the congratulation comment. Thank you for that. And thanks for this other one here from John. Just saying some nice words. We appreciate it.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. Until next week, we're out.